Hi, this is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net, and in today's video you're going to learn the difference between a practice routine versus a practice schedule. Now, on the surface the two might seem like the same thing, but there is a distinct difference. So a practice routine suggests or implies that you're going to do the same thing day in, day out when sitting down to practice guitar. A practice schedule, however, implies or suggests that you have a strategic plan that evolves and develops from one practice session to the next. In this lesson, I'm joined by guitar practice expert Mike Philippov from practiceguitarnow.com to discuss and demonstrate effective ways to create a practice schedule that's going to deliver you the results you desire. Now, Mike is the go-to guy for all things practicing guitar. He's helped hundreds, if not thousands, of people develop better methods and strategies for practicing guitar. And in today's video, he's going to break down in detail how to create an effective practice schedule. So let's get to it.
Practice routines versus practice schedules. It kind of actually ties into what we're talking about, this whole thing of monotonous practicing versus intelligent problem-solving driven practicing. First, remember the reason why we practice guitar. We practice guitar to solve problems or develop skills, or developing your repertoire could fall into either one of those two, or could be a third category. But basically those two or three reasons. And so having a practice routine, and this may sound like I'm splitting hairs when I'm going to these definitions, but to me it's a big deal. Having a routine kind of implies a thing you just repetitively do day in and day out with no real purpose other than just to keep yourself busy. Whereas a practice schedule is something you think about in a strategic way, almost like not even almost, but exactly like a training plan for an athlete who is focusing on specific weakness they're trying to refine. So on guitar, you're thinking about, okay, what's the goal? What am I trying to achieve? Or what specifically what's the process I'm supposed to work on, like we talked about earlier with those process-oriented goals. And you make a plan for those things, and every week your practice schedule could change. It could stay the same for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, probably not more than 4 weeks, because afterwards it's just like milk in the refrigerator. It goes bad after a while. You need to change it around. But the way you change things around should not be random. It should be, okay, where am I at in my playing? What's the next objective I'm working towards? What are the skills I need to develop? What are the problems standing in my way? And what's the time budget that I'm working with? And from there, you plan the exact things you're going to do to go in the direction you want to go. And thinking of it that way, as opposed to, okay, here's my practice routine, here's what I do every day for 45 minutes, I find it to be a much better, more strategic use of your practice time.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always on about that in terms of like it's an evolving, moving thing, your practice. It's not the same. I mean, you don't want to change it every day, of course, because then you just chop change too much and you're not going to dig into something. But yeah, absolutely. It's got to, and that's going to be based on a number of things, I guess, but certainly, the progress that you're making. And I think keeping a practice journal or something like that is good, to be able to just write down what you practiced, how you went with it, any issues you came up with, and then when you go and practice again, you can just look and see your last entry and go, okay, that's exactly what I'm doing, that's where I was with that. And it just keeps you accountable to what you're doing, but also you can kind of track how things are working for you or aren't working for you, and then make those changes as you go. And I've certainly changed my practice a lot over the years, but even now it will be I'll rotate things in and out too. I won't always just stay on the same three things. I'll put something on the back burner and bring something else into the mix, and it's rotating through different things certainly as well to keep across the things that I want to do, not knowing that I can't work on everything all the time.
Yes, for sure. And actually, with the journal thing, one thing I also found to be effective, in addition to doing the journal thing, is to think about and visualize yourself practicing kind of away from the guitar. So that could be part of your away from the guitar practice, or it could be simply, it's like you warm up your body before a race, right? If you were to run a race, you would warm up your body before you start running. Before you start practicing, you obviously warm up your hands. Everybody note talks about that. But what about warming up your brain? So thinking about, okay, what is my plan for today? What am I going to work on? And see if you can even visualize yourself doing it. Going back to this whole movement versus notes mindset. Okay, what are the movements you're supposed to focus on? Make sure that you're dialing in or undoing bad habits or whatever the case is. Visualize yourself doing it. It becomes so much easier to then pick up your guitar and get yourself to do it and get yourself to keep doing it. That's also one of the things that I kind of instinctively figured out when I was back in high school. I would, get on the school bus and I would just put my head against the window and just visualize what I was going to do that day. And the thing is, oftentimes I got the visualization part wrong in the sense that the motions may not have been flawless because I was still learning, but I at least gave myself a fighting chance to do what I needed to do in the best way that I knew how in that moment. And then later on, as I learned more and I refined my technique and so on, I was able to use that same process, again, going back to the process versus outcome thing, the same visualization idea and technique to train new motions into my technique. And to go on a bit of a tangent here, but I think it's relevant. When it comes to things like bad habits in your technique, almost everybody is scared of bad habits, like there's some sort of boogeyman that's gonna, come and get you if you're not careful or whatever. I don't make it that big of a deal about bad habits in the sense that bad habits are simply inefficiencies in our technique that we need to refine. And as long as we keep playing guitar, we're gonna keep refining our technique. So to put it another way, we're all dealing with bad habits all the time, and we never stop dealing with them until we stop playing guitar. So I know everybody, when they're a beginner, they're like, okay, I want to, not everybody thinks that way, but many people do. They think, oh, I want to learn the right way so I don't have to undo a bunch of bad habits later. To a certain extent, that is, of course, a smart way to learn. You don't want to just learn a bunch of crap. But to a certain extent, you can't be afraid to just try something and see what happens. And as long as you are being deliberate about, let's say, a certain motion in your fretting hand or thumb position or the way you pick the strings or pluck the notes or whatever, as long as you are deliberately trying a certain way just to see how it's going to feel, completely fine to do that. Because if it doesn't work, you can just say, okay, it doesn't work. Let me just change something else. So bad habits are nothing really to worry about as long as you are approaching them with that sort of mindset.
It's just refinement over time, isn't it? There's things there's things I've changed about my playing that I did for many, many, many years, and it wasn't necessarily a bad habit as such, but I just found a more efficient way, or I was taught a better way that I thought, yeah, that makes sense to me. And if it makes sense and I know it's going to make my playing better in some way, then I'll change it. And even after doing something for a couple of decades, which was one thing with my picking at one point, I totally changed that. And it maybe took, 2-3 months to really get into my playing to the point where the other way felt awkward. But I mean, that's not a long time if we're talking about 20 years of doing something one way. So yeah, I like the idea of we're always working on bad habits, if you like, or, working on our playing and refining. And I think, never be afraid or hesitant to change something, no matter how long you've been doing it, if it's going to be better for your playing, or someone can, someone's teaching you and they can show you why that's going to be better, then I would recommend doing that. Having said that, I wouldn't just change things, each month just for the hell of it. The next trend or the next video you see on YouTube says something different, so you'll do that, and then you just end up all over the place. But certainly, yeah, refining as you go, I think, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like you said, you don't want to just be jumping back and forth. You want to have a reason to be doing anything. And really, if there wasn't a reason to be doing anything, none of us would be practicing, right? We're only practicing to get. I know you know that. I'm just kind of making a general point here.
If you like this video, you'll love this ebook complete with video examples called 10 melodic fingerpicking patterns you can learn in 10 minutes or less. Do you struggle to make the fingerpicking patterns you learn on guitar sound like music? Perhaps it's because you believe in one or more of these fingerpicking pattern myths. 1. You need to know a lot of patterns to have your fingerpicking sound musical. 2. Only advanced fingerpicking patterns sound musical. Easy patterns are too basic to sound any good. Or 3. There is a magic pattern out there somewhere that once found will finally have your fingerpicking sound the way you want it to. None of these myths are true. This is because fingerpicking patterns alone are not musical. they're technical. It's what you do with the patterns that will determine how musical they sound. In this ebook, you learn how to make the most boring fingerpicking patterns sound amazing instantly. Plus, the simple trick to make advanced fingerpicking patterns easier to play. And the thumb and one finger trick that's so simple and will have your fingerpicking sounding pro in no time. Click the link in the description below this video and download your free ebook complete with video examples, 10 melodic fingerpicking patterns you can learn in 10 minutes or less. You'll have it in your inbox within minutes. Let me know in the comments what acoustic guitar topics you'd like to see covered in future videos. I read the comments, I get lots of great suggestions from you guys, so don't be shy, drop us a line. What you suggest may well become a video in the near future. If you like this particular video, then hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and of course hit the all important notification bell button. That way YouTube will tell you when I've released a new video. You might think you're subscribed to the channel because my videos pop up in your feed. However, that's not necessarily the case. So if you like the channel, I would really appreciate the sub. This is Simon Candy from AcousticGuitarLessonsOnline.net. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch my videos. I very much appreciate it. I hope you got a lot from this one, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.